requesting that they have the right to live openly and not be discriminated. They had been denied housing, they had been denied jobs, lots of discrimination. And an uprising occurred. So there were other bars in New York City, that gay bars, that started to participate. And over a series of a few weeks, there were protests. And it gained momentum throughout the country. 1 year later, on June 28th, 1970, there was the first Gay Pride March, and it was held in Chicago, New York City, San Francisco, and I think LA, I'm not sure, can't remember all of them, but some of the major cities. And from that sprung several different organizations that were fighting for the rights of gay and lesbians. In the year 2000, President Clinton declared June Gay Pride Month. And in 2011, Barack Obama expanded that scope. And instead of making it Gay and Lesbian Pride Month, it was LGBTQ, if I've got it right. So the month in all of the United States has always been June. There was a very small period of time way back where there were some educational organizations, I want to say in DC, and they had some events in October. And internationally, it's celebrated in different months, like Amsterdam is August, and United Kingdom is February. But I think this is a great idea, but I would really like to be in step with the rest of the country and have it in June. You know, like, for instance, this month is, Black History Month, and all of the United States celebrate it. And I just feel like we should be in step with the rest of the country. So I just want to put that out there for both the organizers to consider and for the council to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Topher, would you like to respond to that? Can you talk to us about what the decision-making process was, and did you consider June?
So yeah, we did consider June. My decision-making process in that, or our decision-making process in that, was we're thinking that September would be a very high tourism time for New Hampshire and Keene, and that was part of that. But having it in June, we're totally not opposed to having it in June. But we would definitely not be the only city that's not having their own Pride in June. There are many other cities that have it outside of June. But I would certainly take that into consideration. However, at this point, that would shorten our time frame by quite a bit to plan. We can take that into consideration, but I don't think we would be super out of step with other cities that do a Pride Week outside of June.
Well, I certainly feel like, taking into consideration the time frame to plan it, that it would not be out of the question to have an event like this in September, and maybe consider for 2023, if it made sense and you thought it would work for the volume of people that you're hoping for to get to enjoy it, that you might take that into consideration. Absolutely. As well.
Yes.
Councilor Jones.
Thank you. Adam, may I call you Adam?
Absolutely.
Adam, thank you for doing this. But I don't know if you know, we have an advisory committee called the Human Rights Committee, which it's been around for a long time. It used to be called the Jonathan Daniels Martin Luther King Committee, and they expanded and morphed into the Human Rights Committee. And if you go online, read the goals of that committee, having events like this is part of their goals. And I think before you have your protocol meetings, you should consult with them and work with them.
Absolutely. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That was on my agenda for sure, to work with them. Part of this right now is to get into City Hall and meet all of you and meet with the committees that I need to talk to.
Well, then you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yes,
and if can I add to that too?
Yes,
there's also, in the area, there's the Monadnock Region Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belongings Committee, Another great, they're not advisory to the council, but they work in a regional capacity. When we did our declaration of inclusion for the city, they helped with the wording for that. They're very insightful people, and that would also be a good source for you to talk to.
Absolutely.
I know the chairman is Dan Smith, who's the CEO of the YMCA, so that would be the way to go and deal with them also.
Okay, thank you very much,
Just
yeah.
not telling you what to do, just
Yeah.
telling you things
I
that are
very much-
available.
Yeah, I appreciate the help, absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, so, we hope that when you bring an idea like this before our committee, that you can leave, with some homework, but also hopefully with some, direction, and the city staff will follow up with all of these ideas and help. If you don't remember the names of specific committees or how to get in touch with them, I know that they'll certainly.
We're taking notes, so absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Counselor Filio?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Randy Filio, Keene City Councilor. Yeah, I think this is a wonderful idea. And I think we should do everything we can to get behind it. And I know especially when a new group comes in, we do this all the time. And so for us, it's kind of like clockwork. You got to do this, you got to do that. A new group coming in just to sit before a committee is daunting. So I applaud them for doing that. And I think we need to all get behind them and help them. Councilor Jones is right. The Human Rights Committee is the first one that they should be making a phone call to, because they know how to circumvent, the government part of the issue, which can be, daunting. To me, it doesn't matter what time of the year it is. I think September is great. But I think this is perfect for what we just said, is we're an all-inclusive city. What better way to celebrate being an all-inclusive city this September than showing people it's more than a plaque on a wall, that we really mean what we say and we back what we say. So I hope we get behind this group 100%. I certainly intend to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Filio. Yes, and I think, this was a great opportunity. We heard from Councilor Chadbourne some history behind what you're trying to do, and, hopefully this whole process just helps get this information out into the community.
Great.
Do we have anyone else who has any more questions? Anyone from the public? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion.
Move to recommend move to recommend that I put my microphone on. Move to recommend the request for Keene Pride to use city property be put on more time to allow for the protocol meetings to occur.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Giacomo, a second by Councilor Jones. Anyone have any questions on that motion before us? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote. All in favor? And that is unanimous. So we'll be looking forward to having you back. Get those protocol meetings started, and hopefully you'll come back with some good news.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and our second item, probably much less exciting, is the proposed amendments to the City Council Rules of Order. And I believe we have our clerk here with us to get us started. What I would like to let everyone in the room know, and everyone who's listening, these amendments are only a portion of amendments to our rules of order. This does not cover the entire document before us. There have been bits and pieces of the document that have been chosen to go over tonight that are a lot of administrative changes. There are a couple of more weighty items. Today, I introduced a letter to the clerk's office asking the council and the mayor to put section 15, which has to do with conflicts of interest, back before council committee. So I'm hoping that we will see that come before our committee in March. And I also saw that the FOP committee has raised the remote participation letter that Councilor Giacomo and Councilor Remy and myself had introduced some time ago onto their agenda. And I'm hoping and expecting that that will get referred back to us for our March meeting as well. So I just want to preface the conversation by saying that those are a couple of topics we won't be talking about tonight, but we can get into the meat of a lot of these changes, and hopefully our clerk can get us started.
Thank you so much. So the effort did start in 2019. Actually, it was probably the summer of 2019. Mayor Lane was concluding his term as mayor, and the city attorney and I wanted to really get his perspective on the rules. He had served 20 years, both as a councilor and a mayor, and through that he had seen a lot of activities and a lot of situations and had great familiarity with the rules of order. So the attorney and I probably had 3 or 4 meetings with former Mayor Lane. I remember I was sort of the reader. So I would read a section, and then we would stop and we would think, and did it make sense? And let's change this word to this. And oh, look, we're not at all consistent about this term. And so that was sort of the effort of these administrative changes. During those, obviously, we identified a few that were more substantive, and we'll be going through those again this evening. But our original intent was to have taken these changes to the city council in the fall of 2019. Can't really remember why that didn't happen, but it didn't. And so a few months into Mayor Hansel's term, the attorney and I asked to meet with him, and we started the process again. And Mayor Hansel certainly had his own perspective about the rules. And so we incorporated many of his thoughts into a document. And we had decided that, well, it's a big nut. There's 40 sections here. And we decided, well, let's take the sort of the significant ones, the priority ones to the council. We did, and those easily passed. And then we took a second attempt at the, what I would call the more administrative ones. But in those administrative ones was the remote access and conflict of interest. And obviously there's differing opinions about those two subjects. And unfortunately, the focus of the committee and on the council floor sort of dealt with those and sort of, I'm afraid, didn't really focus in on what were concerning to me in terms of procedural changes to the rules for the effectiveness of your meetings. And so this is now our third attempt to bring back these administrative rules changes to you. It is not the entire document. It is only those sections. The majority of them are just wordsmithing changes. But again, there's about close to a dozen sections that really do have some significant changes for the council's consideration. And I asked for the city attorney to again lead in a explanation of those section by section this evening.
Thank you so much. City attorney?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to say, if you really want to see the sausage being made, this is the one to stay for, unfortunately. So,
Thank you.
thank you to the members of the committee. Patty did a wonderful summary. I'll go through the sections that have at least some real substantive change. Many of them are wordsmithing, as the clerk has pointed out. A lot of that was just, she said, being consistent. Using the word or phrases that are similar. If you're going to have a temporary chairman, call him the temporary chairman all the way through. If you're going to have a mayor, call that person the mayor all the way through. So a lot of that was really just trying to tie all of that up. But with respect to the ones that are changing, I'll go through them and sort of summarize and by any means ask questions as we go. The very first change was on the regular meetings, which is section 1. Essentially, what we did there was to recognize that as a result of the pandemic, there may be events or things that occur that would prohibit you from meeting. So we put that in there. It seemed to be a reasonable thing to do. In section 2, there are only some minor changes to that. Again, the wordsmithing. We did change the requirement for calling a special meeting from 5 members to 7 to be a little bit more representative of the council as a whole. Section 10 of the rules is on decorum and order. This involves electronic communication during the period of time that the meeting is in session. This is a result, frankly, of some discussions that have happened in the municipal bar and up at the state legislature with respect to the access to digital devices during a meeting, and a concern that, you have the opportunity in the digital age now and the internet to be communicating ex parte, as they say, we either with other members of the council or even with your constituents out in the world. And those are communications that may have something to do, or probably do have something to do, with respect to what's being discussed, and those are occurring outside of the public context. So we've put language in there that basically references that and states that would be inappropriate to do. Jumping down to section 21 of the rules at this point, that deals with the temporary chairman. That makes it clear that, as you know, under the charter, the mayor can't vote unless it is to break a tie. But we wanted to make it clear that in the absence of the mayor, a temporary chair can vote. And that could result in a tie happening. And if a tie vote happens in that kind of situation, then it's presumed to be a no vote or a nay vote at that point, because you need a majority in which to act. Section 22, special committees. This was one that I had suggested making a change on. This was the removal of the direction for the city manager to expend funds or staff time with respect to one of these initiatives. Quite frankly, that's within the purview of the city manager. I have to tell you, though, in the discussions that we had with this, not only this city manager, but most any city manager would probably not be reticent in assisting the council when it comes to funding and staff time. But that was something that I suggested being changed because of the statutory issues. On section 23, the standing committees, this was relative to making sure now that the legislative proposals, as you know, they used to just come to PLD, but now that we are suggesting that it goes to the committee that may have appropriate jurisdiction with respect to whatever the legislation is. Now, on that, I'll note that, as we discussed earlier, just sort of off the cuff, we had made a change, or suggested a change to move the rules of order from PLD's consideration to FOP. During the last period of time that we went through this, we had agreed that it would stay with PLD. Unfortunately, that change didn't get made as we went forward. So the rules changes are staying with PLD because, as you know, we decided back then, you guys do a really good job at this. So we thought that would be appropriate to leave it there. Under section 24, communications, one of the things that we did there, and unfortunately there is I'm going to call it a Scrivener's error, because unfortunately I don't really know the distinction between digital and electronic, but apparently there is one. And it should have said in section 25, or an electronic signature created in accordance with the city ordinances. So we're just going to ask you to make that as a Scrivener's change. Rather than digital, it should have said electronic. And quite frankly, that's to keep us up with the what's happening out there in the world in order to be able to accept these signatures. In section 26, the review of the items of business. This refers to the referral by the mayor to the appropriate committees that are in place. And it made some changes to reflect the fact that sometimes we refer these to the committee, sometimes there's a governmental entity out there that we need to refer them to. You have all experienced that. Mm-hmm. They've come to us and they say, well, you really need to go to the Department of State, or, to the Department of Transportation or something like that. So we tried to tighten that language up a little bit to make it sure where my items went to when they were coming into the city. And section 33, resubmission of items once considered. We eliminated a fair amount of language with respect to that, quite frankly, because it became difficult to determine, when there's some material change or substantial change, or who makes that decision and why would you do that. There is a reconsideration provision both for the mayor, a reconsideration provision both for the city council, and a provision that basically says, once you've dealt with a matter, then it can't be brought up again for until the next calendar year. And there's logic to that, because otherwise you may be sitting and spinning over and over again on the same subject. So we decided to make that clearer. On section 36, to amend the rules of procedure, we eliminated the provision dealing with the unanimous vote to waive. It just didn't seem appropriate to do that. If you're going to have an amendment, you should put it in front of the committee. There should be some discussion about it. People can get caught off guard and vote sometimes when they don't really know what they're voting on, to be quite blunt about it. So we did take that out, and also we wanted it to be in alignment with the rest of the rules that apply. And then in chapter, or in section 37, sorry, I've been in statutes all day, so I think chapters at the moment. In section 37, the procedures to fill the vacancy, we did make a change there as a result of the last election cycle, as you know, that, we had a vacancy, and it just didn't seem appropriate when the election is essentially imminent to go through the placement process, but instead to place it in a context where, you're far enough out in order to make a decision on having somebody take that seat. So that, in summary, in a nutshell, are the changes that we're suggesting. And as the city clerk has pointed out, they don't include the other two amendments that were the subject of much discussion.
Great, thank you so much for going through those with us. I would like to point out to everyone that we do have several counselors sitting on the committee this year who have heard these amendments once already and have gone through them with a fine-tooth comb. But we do have new counselors who this is their first real in-depth look, so I'm sure we're going to have questions. I do want to start off with I picked up your habit, section 36. So I believe Council Ormerod had pointed out earlier that there was a conflict in some of the language with where referrals were going. It is correct in the breakdown of the standing committees, but if you read in chapter 36, it says to amend the rules that the preceding regular meetings of the city council shall be referred to, and then planning, license, and development committee is stricken, and finance, organization, and personnel committee is bolded.
Good catch.
So we need to edit that back.
Right, thank you very much. Good catch.
So that's it. That's one. Committee, do we have some other items? Councilor Ormerod?
Thank you.
Microphone, please.
Thank you for the microphone reminder. I actually think these are beautiful and elegantly done. Someone thought that they were maybe boring, and yeah, we like to joke about procedure, but I thought this was exceptionally well done. And I really appreciate the work and the clarity and the use of modern, clear language that you put into something that could be really legalized. So thank you for that. What I wanted to the question I had was in section 33. I understand the intent for clarity or not building in extraneous ambiguity, and I appreciate that. But I'm wondering if there is a resubmission of something that's beyond the timeline. Could we suspend rules of order to look at something again? For example, our masking ordinance, we've kind of reconsidered several times. So I'm wondering if the rules of order suspension would allow us to reconsider things.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, these reconsideration, except out of the charter, which is a power given to the mayor in its own state. But yes, these are your rules, and the rules are subject to suspension and change.
Then I'm even more impressed because the rest of that language is completely unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Giacomo?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's actually, I really like most of the language that's been changed in here. There's one thing that caught me when I was reading through it this week, though. In section 6, it starts off there referring to I'm sorry. Section 6 is where it starts. Section 11 is where I was actually looking at, though. It starts off when recognized by the chair. I believe that is the only part in this whole document where the lead is referred to as the chair. Everywhere else it's chairman. And I was wondering if it would be possible to do a Control F and get rid of man and just change it to chair throughout to get rid of some gender-specific language in there. I know chairman is a formal term, but chair is just as easy to say in one fewer syllable. And it's used in section 11 already. So again, you're talking about consistency throughout using the same language.
Right, yep.
And I don't want to speak for you, Councilor Johnson, but I think that as the ladies on the committee, we probably would appreciate that.
Right.
So it is, I found it in section, looks like 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, and 21. It might be elsewhere, but that was just at the beginning of the meeting scrolling through quick. Again, a Control F replace might work just as well.
Nope, that would be fine.
So that's all. Thank you.
I used to substitute teach as a part-time pastime when I was in private practice. And quite frankly, one of the things, and this is back then, remember, I used to stand up there and say, look, everybody, I have to apologize. I'm a guy. I think like a guy. I'm a him. And if I use that kind of terminology, it's just, I apologize for that right up front. And I think that this is kind of where that came from.
Yeah, and I think that it's just sort of par for the course that we fine tune all of this language and, every so often we take a look back at some of the documents that we've been living with and not thinking twice about and realize they can get, polished up a little bit.
Right.
Counselor Giacomo?
If I may, it's actually in there, it does say he or she and him or her at several other places. So it is actually allowing for multiple genders in there, but anyways.
It just clarifies it,
And
sure.
it simplifies a little. Thank you.
Counselor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of questions. I said Chair.
I will answer to anything.
I'm going to jump all around here, but going back to the vacancy, Tom,
Vacancy, yep.
why did we pick 4 months out? Is that a standard somewhere, or is that arbitrarily picked, or?
We thought about that a fair amount, and only because of the
37.
the sort of the time period that's necessary to, announce the vacancy, to allow a reasonable period of time, for people to submit in order to come into the vacancy. We have to, do notices to the, the world about that. So when we thought about 60 days or 90 days, once you include that period of time into it, it really started to compress it a little bit. But other than that, it was just what we thought was a reasonable period of time based upon the necessary action that had to be taken to fill that seat.
Okay, and I'm not contesting it, I'm just
Yep, just-
questioning. So actually, we would go 6 months with a vacant seat then, because then there's the 2 months after election, correct? You go 4 months before the election, and then 2 months before they're seated.
That's true, because they wouldn't, if they are elected at that point, if the vacancy happens too close, then you do have those 2 months afterwards, after the November election, that the person would not be eligible to sit yet, because they wouldn't have been sworn in. So there may be that period of time, that's
In
correct.
some states, and I don't know if you can do that in New Hampshire, if there's a vacancy and then there's an election for that one seat, they're allowed to fill that seat right away without waiting for the,
Oh, they would be in this.
January.
Oh, no, I see what you're saying, in the general election.
Yes.
On November 3rd. I don't believe that our statutory scheme allows that to occur. You have to be.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, I just-
Yeah, no, I don't.
I've
believe
seen it
that
done
would-
other places, I just didn't
Yeah,
know.
I don't believe that would occur.
Okay, let somebody else go in and come back to me.
Do we have anyone else with any other questions currently? I think it's just you, Counselor Jones. If you can just identify the section so we can all follow you.
Yeah,
And, while you're looking for your next update, it sounds like we're moving through this fairly quickly, but I know you all remember that this committee originally put hours of time into scrutinizing each one of these sections thoroughly the first go-round. So I do appreciate that there was a lot of effort put in to get us to this point. Counselor Ormond?
Just a question on the process. Do we need to propose motions for the amendments in order to accept this?
I think at this point, especially with the term, the wording on it, those are really just sort of Scribner issues, because they're not really changing the substance. And the change to Chapter 36 was something that just got dropped.
Right.
Because you had already decided to leave it at PLD. So I don't think we can just put that back into PLD. I don't think that I've heard any other suggested changes that would require a motion, but that's certainly up to the committee.
Okay.
Want me to go again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think it's section 17, and these aren't changes you recently made.
Motions?
Yes. One is division of the question, and it says a second is required usually, if somebody has to divide the question, the mayor said, it's divided, and let's take 2 votes.
Yes, and remembering that a lot of this applies only if there's no consensus, right? If somebody wants to divide the question and there's no objection to that, the mayor is the chair, or any chair, has the right to sort of operate by consensus. This applies only in the sense if there is an objection to that, and most of them are that way. That's one of the cultural aspects of the way this the city council operates. And Robert's rules recognizes that action by consensus is preferable, as a matter of fact. So this would only apply in the event that there was an objection.
And also in that section, I think we changed the term back when you first started with us. It used to be called call the question. And I don't see it in there, but if I remember right, call the question, the mayor will take it, accept it, unless somebody objects to it, then there's a vote.
That's where it says limit or extend debate. Limit debate really is calling the question, because at that point you are ending debate on the issue. That's the third one down at the top.
Right, I see it, okay. So that explains it, Lucy, okay. And I had one other, but I think we're good for now.
In this section, or did you have another section that you were?
I had another section, but I don't remember where it was right now, so just
Okay.
continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any wrap-up from our attorney as to any of the changes that we've made, or so far you're comfortable with the edits and we can proceed forward with our regular motion?
Yes, right, with the understanding that what we have talked about are essentially Scribner issues. They don't go to substance at this point, and we'll just make those changes.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm looking to see if there's anyone from the public wishing to speak. All right, seeing none, and we don't have any additional questions from the committee. Councillor Jones, were you able to find your?
No, I'm good, I'm thinking, thank you.
I would be open for a motion.
Move to recommend the adoption of the proposed amendments to the City Council Rules of Order with the proposed minor Scrivener modifications.
Second.
Perfect.
We have a motion by Councillor Giacomo and a second by Councillor Jones. Do we have any questions on that motion? Anyone from the public? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote. All in favor? And that is unanimous. So with that, I close the end of our meeting and we are adjourned.
Thank you.